Me too. And now we'll go to our second speaker tonight. That'll be JP, and I would like to introduce his evaluator, Ed. Ed, could you please tell us JP's objectives for tonight?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
We are going to hear a wonderful speech from JP, and his purpose is to introduce the skills to organize and present a podcast. How fun is that? Right? And that's what it's going to do for 5 to 7 minutes. And I'm sure with certitude that we will all want to start a podcast right after JP's speech. Very good. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Ed. John Philip DeBarber, commonly known as JP, will be presenting his take on what makes a podcast a podcast. The speech will be timed 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me welcome JP DeBarber with his speech, How to Make a Podcast a Podcast. Give it up for JP.
Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
So good.
Good. I just shared my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Got a PowerPoint presentation. All right. So today I'll be talking about podcasts, and this is my objectives. I'll be talking about what makes them great, why everyone likes them, and what you can take away from this speech. So does anyone here know a good podcast, or does anyone here listen to podcasts? Just raise your hand, shake your head if you listen to a podcast. Does anyone have a recommendation of what a good podcast they like? You know, just shout one out if you can.
Lewis House.
Lewis House, okay. Anyone else?
Joe Rogan.
Mortified. Joe Rogan. Okay. Well, I think we all know that podcasts are very interesting, and especially in today's world, podcasts have kind of grown into something that's more modern and hip and something that we can all listen to. And you see the podcast that I'm here presenting on my screen, and we got Joe Rogan, we got Bill Burr, we got NPR, we got kind of a mix. And all these people sort of present either comedic and informative, or maybe sort of a subculture of what's going on in today's world. Even though they all have very different styles about how they go about making a podcast, they all have something that's very similar. And there's really 5 things to it. There's authenticity. You know, it feels very real. It doesn't feel like it's scripted. A lot of it is just, it's just a conversation. They're talking to people. A lot of it is they talk about recent and popular topics, which makes their podcast more interesting. And the third thing is they're flat out, it's just interesting to listen. The content that they have to produce it's very intriguing. It's informative because sometimes people actually get their news from listening to podcasts, and it's easy to listen to. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I got Rob. Rob is going to act as my guest, and I'm going to be the host. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Rob a couple of questions. I'm going to basically make sure that I'm the host of the podcast, and I'm going to emulate what I think a podcast should be, and I'll go over why the critical questions and the critical things that went on with this demonstration. So Rob, can you hear me?
I can hear you, JP.
All right. So Rob, how have you been?
I've been fantastic, JP. Thanks for asking.
Good. How's your week been?
It's been a pretty decent week so far. Nothing's really tripped me up, so it's pretty constant. Not bad.
Yeah. I know for myself, I'm taking classes at college, and a lot of it's moved online with this whole coronavirus. I know unemployment rates kind of hit 30%. I mean, it's all kind of impacting us in a certain way. I think for you, how has the COVID-19 kind of epidemic impacted you?
It's kind of interesting. I mean, reality is I work from home all the time, so really nothing has changed for me from that perspective. But the work itself has changed, and not from a kind of a struggling perspective, but the job that I do, the software that we sell, helps people work from home a lot easier. So as you could imagine, things are through the roof. So
you're kind of saying that you're seeing there's an improvement in a sense. you know,
Yeah.
out of a whole kind of array of maybe negativity?
Very, very much so. Very much so.
Are you used to dealing with obstacles like this, or is this something you're very new to?
No, this is, I mean, as we all know, this is a very unique situation that we're in. And what I find really interesting is that I know my children look towards me and ask me, hey, have you ever been through like something like this? And the answer is no. But then I look back towards my mom and ask her that same question. It continues to go back, and no one has been through anything like this. So dealing with obstacles like this is I think, once in a lifetime sort of situation.
I mean, personally from you, I mean, what do you think it takes to overcome, maybe not obstacles about COVID-19, but just obstacles in general about your career or your life?
Well, if I think a little bit here, JP, I think back to my speech that I provided a couple of weeks ago around the road less traveled. And because I took the road less traveled, I was better because of it. And I think we're all on this same sort of road that's less traveled. But I think we're all going to become better because of it towards the end. And again, I think there's a lot of focus on self-reflection, mindfulness. I think will help keep us all centered on that road less traveled.
Thank you, Rob. Everyone, please give it up for my special guest, Rob. All right, I've shared my screen again. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to be talking about, so does anyone have any sort of comments about this little demo that I went through with Rob? Any sort of things you want to talk about that maybe was eye-popping, any things that we should improve on? Just raise your hand and I'll call on you. But
I got a thing.
Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
So Rob, do you think that this will become in some sense the new normal, that more companies will justify doing things online and having less travel because it's cheaper and easier in a lot of cases, or will they kind of revert back to the way things were? What are your thoughts?
I think things are definitely going to change. I think the idea of business continuity is definitely changed. There's always been that in the back room. Companies have always been wanting to prepare for that big thunderstorm or snowstorm or something, and this is something that's gotten away and raised everything up. I think it's going to definitely change things.
Okay, thanks.
Now, talking about this whole podcast, there were really 5 things that I found very interesting. 1, comfortable situation. All podcasts have comfortable situation. Now, am I saying you should be smoking weed and chugging a few beers down before you do a podcast? Absolutely not. But notice the first thing that I asked Rob, how are you doing? How's your week been? I'm really trying to make this situation comfortable for him. You really want to make it comfortable for everyone at the beginning, because this is a conversation, remember, and you're talking to another person. But also remember, if I'm going to ask a hard-hitting question at the end, I can build a better rapport and better chemistry if I get to know my guest before I kind of ask these really difficult questions. Comfortable conversation. Well, the thing about a comfortable conversation is key things of not really interrupting at all. And what I mean by that is, if Rob asks something, then I'm not going to interrupt him at all. I'm going to let the conversation flow. I think the only time in real podcasts that people actually interrupt is when the conversation's kind of getting dire and the person's having trouble thinking, and that's when you need to kind of interject and add some new life and maybe help the conversation flow to the end. Talk about current times. And what I mean by that is we talked about the coronavirus. We talked about something that was pretty relatable to the audience, but also relatable to us. And as much as I want to build rapport and chemistry with Rob, I need to build rapport and chemistry with everyone else that's listening. Open-ended questions. I asked Rob what he thought about his whole situation at work. Rob, what do you think? And it's quite simple. I don't want Rob to say yes or no. And I think when you're asking questions, it's important that you ask questions that don't allow the guest to say just yes or no. You shouldn't allow someone to get away with just giving a short answer. You want to ask questions that sort of facilitate and inspire the other person to give more of a comprehensive answer. And create something the audience can take away. I think we talked about Rob's experience about dealing with challenges, and a lot of the times is you're serving the guests as trying to listen, but also you're serving the audience. I think it's important that the audience takes something away from it. And with these 5 things, I think, we talk about creating something, open-ended questions. We talk about making the situation comfortable. These are all good things for podcasts, but more importantly, I think they're good things for good conversations. Thank you. Back to you, Adelina.
Thank you, JP. So Toastmasters, please take 1 minute.
Nice job.
Back to JP.